Hello everybody, it is me, Game Penguin 21, and today, oh boy, time for another review, and this time on a game that I actually wanted to talk about. Now, I've talked about a few different of these indie FPS shooters so far, but today we're going to be doing something that's breaking the mold and talking about another one. Yes, I am very creative. But what are we talking about today? Well, we are talking about a game by the name of Sulfur. This game was actually one that I saw on the Steam Next Fest originally, and also then originally saw a video by a Red Dragon on the internet, someone you can obviously 100% trust to give you the correct opinions for whatever reason. But I decided to buy it, and I decided to play it, and I have a lot to say about it because I originally started writing this script when I had 5 hours of this game going for me. I am now 40 hours deep, and quite honestly, I can go another 1,000 hours more. Apart from that, what are we going to be talking about? Well, again, like I said, we're going to be giving the main topics of the gameplay, graphics, and story, and even some critiques towards the very end of this video. But as of right now, here's the main points, and here's the TLDR if you really just don't care about watching the rest of this. But please watch the rest of this. This game is $25, is in early access, and is one that I highly recommend due to its amazing gunplay, mechanics, movement, and even the graphics make it look very nice. It is a very well put together original Doom-like shooter, and has these amazing road-like mechanics, and is even part extraction shooter, and has a lot of cooking to go along with it. Delicious meals. Apart from that, again, I highly recommend it, and I do think that you should go out and buy it. But if you want some more specifics, stick around for the rest of this video. But before we get into the full-on review, if you like what it is that I do on support in any other way, shape, or form, other than like and subscribe, hit all the links down in the description below. I do stream here every Sunday at 12 p.m. EST. Come on by and say hi. I also announce some of the streams sometimes. I might be doing some Thursday streams just to get some workload off of me, but that's more of a neither here nor there. With that being said, let's get into it. Starting, of course, off with the story and the graphics. First off, the graphics the game itself has, they look great. No, seriously, despite the fact that this is a 2D sprites in a 3D environment, they really only have several frames of animation. I love this style of game. I have since named this a sort of quote-unquote old-school Doom clones. What do I mean by this? Well, in simple terms, it's practically a reskin, kind of the classic Doom from the 80s, but giving it a more modern twist with actually, improved mechanics and things. Another amazing example, which I've also talked about, is the Forgive Me Father series, Forgive Me Father 1 and 2. I loved that style of game because it gave off a very nice noir graphic style version of that, but this one definitely has its own interesting style that oozes from everything from the enemy design all the way down to the specific reloads for every single gun. This gives you a nice nostalgic storybook kind of vibe, sort of block-colored animation, as it were, I guess is the name for it, and everything down to it gives this sort of cozy, nostalgic feeling. It sort of has these amazing lo-fi beats in the music as well, because the music downright slaps harder than, lo-fi beats to kind of apparently smack goblins in the face to. And it's very nice and chill. Put on a podcast and go through the caves or whatever. Like I said before, the enemy designs are well done and amazing. Each of the variants have similar enemy attacks and, makes it so that way the different enemies themselves. And they're all, again, very distinct with their own sort of little silhouette about them. There are everything from humans, robots, and cyborgs, all the way down to goblins and even dogs. So, quite the amount there. But moving on to the actual story, which is more of a footnote in this because I don't know much about the story. The story itself seems to be that you are a priest that has taken their, magical talking amulet, because I guess every priest has one of those, and has been fleeing from their burning down church to be able to follow this witch to get revenge for, the entirety of that witch killing everything, I guess. You crash your car, take your magical talking amulet, and dive down into the cave, and that's where your journey begins. The amulet does seem to keep you alive for whatever reason, and can give you an interesting benefit, which I will get to more in the gameplay department. The main benefits of it being that that's where the extraction shooter part comes in. With all that being said, anything about the story that I have really much to critique on? It gets out of the way. It's okay, and there's a lot of lore and interesting stuff if you want to go and talk to a lot of the NPCs for 3 hours. But that's not where my thing lies. My thing lies in the gameplay. This section leads me very nicely to the actual loop itself. The basic loop is that you take your guns and any equipment, food, and other stuff, and you head down into each of the map where it seems to have interesting operations whenever you go to specific maps. You have floors of enemies, a refill point to get your amulet back up to be able to escape at least once, but if you go in with full gear and die, you lose everything in your inventory, including all of your money, ammo, and other stuff, and basically have to start from square zero. This is the main location that you have here is your church. This basically allows you to act similarly to your hideout. We'll get there. But there is also mini boss battles and regular boss battles that kind of break up the monotony of it. And again, there is a lot of randomness and random loot tables if you're into this sort of thing. It is a roguelike extraction shooter after all. So yeah. The biggest thing I wanted to talk about is the variety of guns. It's amazing. From revolvers, pistols, and shotguns to even assault rifles and a P90, or the Ferryman, which is chambered in 50 BMG. It's basically a P90 50 BMG gun. It's downright amazing. And all of the game's designs and pros and cons of each of them is fantastic, and that amazing reload animation is so crisp, so clean for every single gun. Now, of course, you can't have guns without interesting attachments. Again, there are your standard attachments and some of your weirdly esoteric ones, and including insurance, which is extremely rare, extremely inexpensive, but is oh so worth it when you actually manage to build up a decent supply of it. There is also even kits to retool your guns. I believe they're called gun drills or something like that, and you can basically retool one gun that is chambered in 50 action BMG to make it chambered in shotgun rounds. And each of them offer pros and cons, benefits and non-benefits whenever you are talking about this. But of course, you can't also just have guns do that. No. You have to be able to enchant them, apparently, like this is Minecraft for whatever reason. This comes into the form of different oils as well as different scrolls, each one of them offering pros, cons, and benefits and nerfs to your weapon. Make sure that you read, because the flavor text basically tells you everything, and don't just slap on a bunch of random stuff, because you won't necessarily be able to actually take that stuff out, at least not right now. You can, in short, get the attachments off via the workbench that is by one of your vendors, but you do need to earn the ability to take oils and stuff off of your guns via quests. We'll get there. But moving on, you can get a bunch of different guns and things very easily, and there are even drops from different enemies. Another interesting deep element of the game is the cooking mechanics. These are so hard and so different to break down because they are done via the standard cooking array. You can have upwards of anything from health potions and giant pizzas all the way down to simple meat on a stick. And I can safely say that after 30 hours finding one cookbook that gave me over 300 recipes, I am still discovering new recipes for the entirety of this game. Most of the consumables can be crafted, though some have to be found, and ingredients can be guessed ingredients, and overall, it is quite the interesting, fun time for this. So, like I said, the main gameplay loop is fun, but what about the movement, which is going to be the main way you're going to be traversing the game? The movement is fantastic. Like I said, like the guns before, as mentioned, it does have some interesting depth to it, where you can get specific armor sets, and specific parts of your armor can affect how you move, where you move, and why you move, and can even make you move in very mysterious ways. Overall, there is so much depth to that again, there is so many positives and negatives to each of these things. For an interesting example, one of the things you can get is a plate carrier, which gives you a minus 10% movement speed, but has one of the highest armor values, thereby mitigating a ton of damage from a ton of different things. But of course, with all of this, you need to get some sort of storage, I guess. You can't be carrying around everything in your inventory, and that is where the church comes in. And holy shits, this is where the extraction elements come in. Yes, if you remember when I said this game is an extraction shooter mechanics, well, there are 3, maybe 4-ish that kind of runs, has your runs in this, to stash away your stuff, the hideout, or whatever. You can store ammo, food, guns, anything you can think of, and just in the one trunk box. Now, there is other ways that you can upgrade your storage to just keep things at your base, but the trunk is the main way of which you can have your items. This main items system will be able to, in short, allow you to end up having I forgot what I was gonna say. Damn. You can sometimes find this in runs, but don't count on it, and you really need to get a good stash going, as the amulet lets you reset only once with the actual charge that you are able to get. Now, you can charge this via paying some good old Dosh coin to the smoker guy, but again, it does cost quite a bit in the early game if you don't know what you're doing. So there's that. So if you are in a sticky situation and need to extract quickly, hit the T button by default to be able to pause time and teleport the heck on out of there. It is important to know that when you are in a run, all of your equipment, including all of your ammo, guns, and armor, and even your coinage will all be subsequent to, well, possibly going away, except for stamps, which I think in this case, those are quest items, and I don't think that quest items such as stamps actually reset upon your death, which is fine. Again, that's more of a thing to talk about in a little bit. But in a recent update, because this trip took so long, like I said, there are these quests. These quests give you stamps, and the stamps allow you to upgrade your base to get more storage, oil resets, and even a possible new vendor toward the end, and even interacting with vendors that you have previously met. Like I said, you can have your amulet and take you back and dump your inventory just in case you die and go back to the grave with nothing and a pistol and a couple reloads for it. Also, it loses all of the ranks because you can level up guns here too, just to add even another level to the actual gun game mechanic. Now, you can only have 1 scrolls, and the rest can only then be oils for positive and negatives, or you could just have an entire plethora of oils for it. I don't know if there's a limit on oils, but overall, there is a ton of stuff there. And again, once you reach level 5, which I believe is the maximum level for any gun or weapon in the game, you basically have a good gun here. You can also need to make sure that you are repairing both your gun and your armor and things, because, of course, you can have those going forward. It's expensive and rare to find gun insurance, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, but you can't really craft it as far as I can tell. It's very expensive and, again, hard to find, but if you do, RNGesus may smile your way. It's the main way, it seems, that vendors, but, again, don't rely on it. Maybe it should be craftable. Anyway, the stash is where other stuff comes in. In short, the main loop is loot up, store, beat monsters, and then progress. The game is also Steam Deck compatible, from what I can tell here, which is a nice little bonus. There is one last element to the game's system that I'd like to talk about, and that is the trinkets. This is more of a sort of book note at the end here, because I didn't know these things actually existed, because apparently they are rare, but they do offer some nice niche benefits. But you do. You can grind for them, and even in some cases find them outright in specific areas of the map, mainly in the desert. But you can also, find melee weapons as well, such as nunchucks, sai, and even katanas. And yes, there is a Ninja Turtles reference. Don't worry, the devs got you covered there. It is really, really cool to be able to crouch while moving at the same walking speed as normal, and if you get the interesting combo of the sliding knee pads as well as the same sort of thing that makes you crouch faster, you basically become like playing Ultra Kill, as it were. Just, you're a priest, I guess. Maybe this is like a prequel to Ultra Kill for whatever reason. I think this is the part of the script where I start to talk about the negatives, and there isn't much, but there is stuff that I do need to talk about that is worth noting here. The main negative that I have written down here is there was a rare occasion where I did get stuck in weird geometry, and it nearly cost me a run once, but luckily I was able to get back fine. But it's because I was mainly messing around, and you shouldn't expect that to happen. There is also other bugs that happens with other aspects here, but overall, it just, ends up with that. The other things I'm kind of missing are some of the RPG stuff from Escape from Tarkov, but this is super duper nitpicky and totally not even worth mentioning because, again, I only mentioned it here because I'm being extremely nitpicky with this game. The quest update actually fixed several of the gripes that I had with buying and getting specific upgrades for your home base and made runs more cool, but I do believe that you should be able to have a notebook here for something similar to actually allow you to interact with NPCs. There is one that seems to be sort of a holographic projector of NPCs and vendors that you've met throughout your journey that you can apparently buy by doing these quests, and I think that solves one of the other gripes that I have, which is there are certain NPCs that are in runs that you have to do stuff for to be able to get more stamps completed, but you'd then have to take your stuff into runs to be able to even accomplish those tasks. So there is that. Like I said before, the problem that I have with the quest system concurrently is that there is really no way to see who requires what for what quests right now. Almost all of them are fetch quests, which is fine because you're mostly going to be picking up a lot of loot anyway. However, I do hope that they kind of expand on this quest update and make it so, you have to kill a certain number of enemies, you have to kill a specific amount of enemies, or you have to survive on a specific map or something, or find a specific item or something to kind of keep that sort of fresh. The main thing, again, like I said, is you will probably need a notebook because unlike most people, I don't have a steel trap memory and I can't remember who needs what for what reason. And you have an entire half of the scoreboard that just doesn't seem to be used for anything. Having a notebook or some sort of mission logbook to be able to see, okay, what I need to bring and to whom would more or less be what I would actually ask for if I'm, asking for updates here. Putting a log into the game and, even if it costs stamps for whatever reason, I think that would be a very good way to even kind of gatekeep that out so people don't know exactly what it is. But again, having those upgrades is important. I do think it would be interesting to have a remote completion system, which I believe is the holographic one, so I'm going to just brush on pie there. So yeah, it's like 30 stamps, or I think actually even 50, and, it does take a while to grind, but again, having that is helpful. even just having the stuff to be able to find them, or at the very least having a reroll would be good, because just in case. Overall, what is the final conclusion about this? And it is very simple. I highly recommend this game to anyone who likes extraction shooters, roguelites, or even general FPS games, because as it stands, and it's just scratching all the itches that I didn't even know that I needed. The guns feel great, the style, the loop, everything in there is amazing, and this game is nice to relax to put a podcast on and listen to the interesting and lovely soundtrack as well in the background, and just, go off into a zen-like state. It feels like I have nothing really bad in the grand scheme of things, other than maybe some of the nitpicks that I had there, and there is still even more to come, as this is, again, still in early access, but it is reaching the end of that. I will probably keep my ear to the ground on this one, as well as being really able to release a full review on the entire game, whenever that is. I cannot wait to get back and play this out. So, that's the review. Thank you all again so much for watching, coming on by, and saying hi. My name is GamePenguin21. If you want to support me in any other way, shape, or form, done other than watching more videos, please hit all the links. I do have a profile where you can actually, you can be funny, share about that, or, just come by one of the live streams that we do every Sunday. Overall, thank you again so much for watching. My name is GamePenguin21, and a peace.